My name does not matter. What matters is that I am 70 years old and Jewish. I have been Jewish every single day of my life, and what I am about to tell you will make some people in my community very angry, but I have to say it. Because at 70, you stop caring about who you offend and start caring about what is true. I was born in Brooklyn, in a time when Brooklyn was the beating heart of a world that no longer exists. My childhood was a silent battlefield between two spiritual forces. On one side was my father. He was a rock, a man from the old guard, descended from a line of Orthodox Jews who survived everything the 20th century threw at them. For him, faith was an iron law, a structure that kept you standing but rarely let you breathe. On the other side was my mother. She was a beautiful mystery, the sixth daughter of a Sicilian Catholic family who converted to Judaism out of love for my father and out of a conviction I never fully understood. She brought Mediterranean fire into our home, but sometimes I would catch a shadow in her eyes, something she had left behind that never fully let her go. I grew up between those two tables. At one, the strict observance of Shabbat, the weight of thousands of years of tradition pressing down on every meal. At the other, a warmth that brushed against the forbidden. My life was a constant contradiction, and for decades my solution was to protect myself with a thick layer of intellectual cynicism. I would tell myself, do not pick a side. When the lights go out for everyone, we will find out who was right. Until then, just live your life. But the problem with that philosophy is that when you reach 70, the lights going out stops being an abstract idea. It becomes a reality that knocks on your door every morning when you look in the mirror. I escaped religion through art. I became a musician. I studied at the finest academies in Manhattan, surrounded by genius and ego. I believed that the harmony of a symphony or the complexity of a jazz piece was enough to feed my soul. For 40 years, my God was the piano. I felt safe in my identity as a secular Jew, proud of my blood, proud of my history, proud of the scars of my people, but completely disconnected from the God who supposedly chose us. And yet, as the years passed, the music began to sound empty, not because it lost its beauty, but because my questions grew larger than the notes. In my 60s, I started looking at my hands and thinking, I have played for thousands of people. I have traveled the world. But who am I when the silence returns to my room at night? It was in that state of vulnerability that an old friend, a man I respected deeply, made an invitation that I thought was absurd. He said, we are reading the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah. Come sit with us. We want to hear what a man with your history has to say. I laughed. I told him it made no sense for a Jewish man from Brooklyn, the son of an Orthodox father, to waste his time with the book of the Gentiles. But this friend did not give up. He looked at me with a compassion that disarmed me and said one sentence that haunted me for weeks. He said, what are you afraid of? What was I afraid of? The truth, my own identity, the possibility that everything I had built my life around was incomplete. Finally, out of what I told myself was pure intellectual curiosity, I went. I walked into that small study group expecting to find a text full of strange imagery, something that smelled of incense and European cathedrals. But when I opened the pages of the Gospel of Matthew, I froze. The first page was not a strange doctrine. It was a genealogy. It was the names of my own people, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David. I began to read with a hunger I had not felt in years. I was not reading their book. I was reading the lost chapter of our own story. I encountered a man named Yeshua because that is what I began to call him, by his Hebrew name. He walked the same streets of Judea. He debated with the rabbis. He quoted the Torah with an authority that made me tremble. And the most shocking realization was this: the New Testament is possibly the most Jewish book that has ever fallen into my hands. How was it possible that for 70 years I had been taught that this was poison? How was it possible that the Messiah was not an invention of Rome, but the purest flower from the root of my own people? I felt like a man who had lived in a dark cave his entire life and suddenly stepped into sunlight. My eyes hurt, but for the first time I could see. But it was not just an intellectual discovery. There was a moment when the book stopped talking to me about history and started talking to me about myself. I read the words of Yeshua when he confronted the religious leaders of his time. He said, "The problem with man is not what he eats, or how many times he washes his hands, or how many prayers he recites from memory. The problem is what comes out of the heart." That was a direct blow to my pride. I considered myself a good man, a cultured man, a man of peace. But at 70, when I looked back honestly, I saw the cracks. I saw the selfishness in my music career. I saw the pride that pushed me away from my father. I saw the darkness that all of us try to hide beneath a surface of decency. I understood that my external Judaism, as much as I respected it, could not clean the stains on my soul. Yeshua said, "I have come so that they may have life and have it abundantly." I was 70 years old and I realized I had never had that abundant life. I had existence, I had career, I had family, but my spirit was dry. I understood that the problem of evil in this world is not a problem of political systems or lack of education. It is a problem of the human heart, and only the one who created the heart has the power to heal it. In that small study room, surrounded by simple people, I got on my knees for the first time in decades, not to ask for health or money, but to ask that Yeshua, my Messiah, would take my tired heart and give me a new life. I know what many are thinking. I know what my father would say if he were here. They would say I surrendered, that I betrayed my ancestors, that I walked out the exit door of the Jewish people. But listen to me carefully, because this is the most important thing I have learned in 7 decades of living. Yeshua of Nazareth is not the exit door. He is the entrance. He did not pull me away from my Jewish identity. He returned me to it. Now I understand the Torah with a clarity I never had before. Now I understand the promises of the prophets, not as ancient dreams, but as present realities. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is no longer a stone figure in a history book. He is a living God who has a relationship with me that goes both ways. There is a resource that helped me go deeper into this journey between the Hebrew Scriptures and the New Testament. It opened connections I had missed for 70 years. I have pinned the link in the comments below. If something in this story is stirring in your heart, it might be the next step you have been looking for. At 70, most people are preparing for the final silence. I feel like I am just beginning to hear the real music. My faith is not the religion of a frightened old man. It is the conviction of a man who has finally found the source of living water. Many in my community are still waiting for the Messiah, searching for a sign in the sky. I say to them with all the love in my soul, do not look that far. He already came. He walked among us, and he is still knocking on the door of every heart. I am not a traitor. I am a Jewish man who has come home. I am a Jewish man who has found his shalom. And if a 70-year-old man raised in the rigor of Brooklyn and the arrogance of Manhattan could find peace at the feet of Yeshua, anyone can. The door is open. You just have to be brave enough to walk through it. If this story moves something in your heart, subscribe to this channel, share it with someone who is searching, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been afraid to question what you were taught? I read every single word. God bless you.